So thanks everybody for being here today. I'm really looking forward to the conference coming up in a couple months. And thank you so much to the people who are willing to talk about it and give us a little bit of a preview. So we have with us Jeff Magoto, who's one of the hosts. And we have Stacey Powell, who's the conference, what's your title? Coordinator?
Coordinator.
Conference coordinator. And we have Trish Nolde, who's the, program chair. And we might have one of the keynote speakers joining us, Michelle Aoki. That's going to be really exciting to hear what she's going to talk about. And we're just going to have a really lively session where we give a little bit of a preview of what's coming up and give time for people to ask questions. So just a few kind of housekeeping things. One is that if you're not speaking, if you could maybe keep your microphone on mute just to help cut down on background noise. And people who are joining the webinar, you can open the chat by kind of hovering over your screen, clicking chat, and then you're welcome to type questions or comments, conversations, jokes, weather reports, whatever, into the chat box, and then we'll have our panelists address any of those things as we go. So I think the first person I'm going to turn it over to is Jeff. Is that right, Jeff?
That's right. Thanks, Shannon. Hello, everybody. I feel like, in a way, I'm preaching to the choir here. I thought that we were going to have to give a rousing fire and brimstone speech about why come to an IALLT conference. And in part, that's because we're a little bit down on what I was hoping would be an outlandish and outrageous and excited rush to register. But both Stacey and Trish assure me that the numbers will come and not to worry about that. So with that, I'm going to kick it off talking a little bit about why host an IALLT conference, because there'll be another one in a couple of years. And as far as I know, we haven't picked a site yet. Is that true? Yeah, okay. So I thought you might want to, sort of hear a personal, why hold an IALLT conference in Eugene, Oregon. And then after that, I sort of preview for you some of the places you'll be seeing and sitting, and hopefully get you excited so that I can hand it off to Trish and she'll talk to you about what's actually going to be in the program. And then if Michelle's around, she's going to be our keynote speaker, and she's going to give a very brief preview of 35 years of working in, I just saw her name pop up, so great timing, Michelle, of being one of the leading lights, one of the thought leaders of language education in the Pacific Northwest. And then Stacey's going to wrap it up with all the other things that are going to be happening at the conference besides the academic sessions. So without further ado, I'm going to put up a PowerPoint slideshow, of course. Only because, in case you thought this was like the Drupal developers weekly chat or something like that, I wanted to correct that notion. I think everybody knows our dates. I think everybody knows that we're in Eugene, Oregon, and I'm sure that at least half of you know where Eugene, Oregon is, and you've discovered if you're flying through Chicago, there's now a nonstop flight from Chicago to Eugene. So if you haven't checked it out, it's on United, and it starts as of June 1st. And I did check last week, and you can find it. Oh, good for you, Shannon. Awesome. Okay. So a little bit of background. I think the reason our bid for why hold a conference in Eugene had a lot to do with the fact that there hasn't been an IALLT in the Pacific Northwest in a long time. The last time that I'm aware of was almost 22 years ago. And as it turns out, that was my first IALLT conference. It was actually a fleet conference, and I think most of the people on this chat know the difference, but I'm not sure I can explain the difference, except that all the same people, plus a whole lot more people, especially from Japan, show up at fleet. And I'll let Stacey provide more clarity about that. I was particularly delighted that that was my first conference because it was less than a year after I'd become a language center director. And so if there's anybody new in the profession, I don't think there's a better way to get a leg up on what we do, how we do it, and the real kind of diverse scope of people who are in this organization and how we all go about that sort of triple challenge of, you know, pedagogy, administration, and technology, I would say. And there's probably 3 or 4 more pieces, but whenever someone asks me about, you know, what do, I say I try to keep up on those 3 areas, and everything else is I'm running in place on. I think a second reason is the Amada Language Center where I work is a very hospitable place. And for 40 years, we put together an annual event, as many of you do, for high school students and teachers. And we bring 1,200 people to that. So we're used to bringing people in, but that's just for a day. And it's not quite as involved as an IALLT conference, but in some ways having 1,200 high schoolers on your campus it can prepare you for almost anything. A third and important reason is that CASTLES, or the Center for Applied Second Language Studies, is here. And Julie and I both are co-hosts, and we, were sitting around having coffee one day when the call for those interested in hosting an IALLT conference came out, and we just looked at each other and said, let's do it. And, I don't think I would have done it by myself. With them, they bring, a very creative and cool bunch of applied linguists and lots of interesting projects that many of you are very well aware of. And I think everyone on their team is presenting at the conference, or if they're not, they're supporting somebody who is. So you'll get to see a lot from CASTLES at the conference. And finally, literally, I think like 2 days before Stacey came out to do a site visit to see if we were qualified to host an IALLT conference, we had a new student union. Actually, it's an old student union that got massively remodeled and expanded. And that was something that was always kind of missing on our campus. There wasn't a good place to host a conference. So I thought I'd show you a little bit about that place. And kind of get you excited about the fact that we'll be in one space the whole time. And it's a huge space and has lots of different kinds of spaces. So I think you'll appreciate both the variety of sort of presentation venues and audience venues, but also the fact that if you need a break, escaping for coffee or other beverages is just a flight of stairs down. As a new place, I think all of the architectural must-haves of new kinds of conference spaces are present. And I think the most important is light. So all of the spaces go very light, assuming it's not a dreary, dark Oregon day like it happens to be today, or they get dark enough so that your own PowerPoint presentations sparkle. There aren't writable walls in every room, but I sure hope some of us take advantage of that. There will be plenty of markers should you want to venture into a little bit of a makerspace activity while you're talking. Just another, sort of view. And all the rooms that I'm showing you are ones we'll be using. The use of wood, surprise, surprise, in Oregon is a really, nice, and it's present in every room, and just gives a warmth and a kind of a well, to put it this way, it makes departmental meetings on Wednesday mornings at 8 o'clock bearable. That's how cheerful these rooms are. This is the Crater Lake, which I guess I should interject here. The number one question I've gotten so far is, how far is it from Eugene to Crater Lake? And the answer is about 2.5 hours. However, to get to Crater Lake South, which is this room, it's about 2 minutes from the main conference venue. Again, light and a lot more space for some of our bigger sessions. If you're doing a workshop, they're going to be in our language center, and we have some great and really interesting sounding workshops. I have to tip my hat about 5 times to, our theme came from Trish. I mean, I'm guessing that crafting has been part of her life from a long time, but the fact that there's a craft center in this conference venue really spoke to her. And so our theme of crafting language communities, or crafting communities of language learners, that really came from her. And I think it's indigenous, it's local, it's authentic, and so all of the workshops have a really nice craft quality to them. Of course, there'll be entertainment, and there'll be all different kinds of entertainment, from music at the reception to discovering the 26 different kinds of craft brewers that are in Eugene at the pub crawl. I don't think we'll get to all 26, but a delicious banquet that will surely have salmon or some local fish. And if you hang around for the picnic on the last night, it'll be a great way to relax along the beautiful Willamette River. And in the middle of June is when the salmon happen to be running up that river. So who knows? I'm not going to promise, but you may see a spawning salmon in action. I think the way I ended our proposal for why Oregon was, I tried to talk about what makes Oregon a unique place. And most people said, isn't it because you pump your own gas and you don't have a sales tax? Well, those are indeed true. So be prepared if you rent a car or you're bringing lots of money to buy a laptop. You'll be pleasantly surprised. But I think what makes Oregon unique is that we have Portland, and everybody's heard of Portland, but the real Oregon is every place else but Oregon, but Portland. And Eugene sort of sits in between, the country city, the valley, the coast, the mountains. And so I think I'd like to say that, in your 3 or 4 days here, you'll get to see a microcosm of Oregon. And then if you decide to hang out for a couple more days, you'll have a wonderful time exploring those other places. And I'm going to wrap up by saying this is how you put an IALLT conference together. You get 5 or 10 or 15 of the smartest people in our profession to come together for a couple of days in August the year before, and you pound out what the conference is going to be about. And when your president just happens to change jobs right about the time that you're planning the conference, well, guess what? Zoom works. And so this is just a tip of the hat to Stacey, Trish, Andrew, Shannon, all of the board who participated in the conferences, and especially Felix, who did yeoman's duty trying to balance a move and chair a couple days worth of meetings. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Trish.
Hey everyone. So I would like to talk a little bit about how excited I am about coming to Eugene. First of all, Eugene is just an amazingly beautiful little college town. It's like kind of iconic as a college town. In fact, It is the iconic college town. It happens to be where, what was that little college movie that was filmed a few dozen years ago? What was that?
Not little college movie.
Yeah. But I actually
House of Animals.
Yeah, Animal House. It was filmed there. So it is the college town. So that was just an amazing little bit of Eugene trivia there. Jeff is a wonderful host. He showed us all these beautiful places. And he spoke a little bit about the conference theme and tying in with crafting. And that, it's true. I have crafted done crafts of all kinds my entire life. And I love when I travel to other cultures to look at they make our experiences language learners and teachers. So when I got there and I saw that everything about Eugene is actually about craft. It's about craft wineries and craft breweries. There's even craft food. As a gardener, I happen to know that there's like craft gardening going on in there, and also every kind of handicraft you can imagine. It's so important to Eugene and to that culture. They have a craft center right there in their student center. And then I thought a little bit more about what we do in the language profession particularly. And we are a profession, and we are in many cases approaching professions in a scientific way, particularly among instructional technology. And we want to test things and get results and disseminate that research. But a lot of what we do is also craft. It's much more art than science. It's being able to read our students, read our profession, read trends in language education and trends in technology use, and being able to, with all of those tools in our toolbox, craft something that's meaningful to our students and to ourselves and to our lives, and hopefully to the profession as a whole. And so that's where this craft theme generated, was from all of those things together, and aided in no small part by some craft beer. So as usual, the IALLT program itself is rich and diverse and showing every possible area of our field. As the program chair, I get the rare and very honorable first look at things, and then working with Stacey and putting it together into a meaningful schedule. So the schedule is about to be released. We are finishing it up, and I think it'll probably, the first draft will go out today, or at least, I don't say draft, it'll be done. It'll go out today or tomorrow, and then the app will be up probably sometime in the next week, I think. Stacey, nod your head yes? Yes.
Yeah, the PDF actually got posted last night.
Oh, excellent.
So,
thank you. Mm-hmm.
Now, if I find problems, I'll fix it. But
right.
Yeah.
So you'll all get a chance to see the excellent programs that are coming out. I want to highlight how, again, the broad diversity of topics in IALLT is presented. There is lab management and help for lab directors. There's space renovations and how space is utilized, but it goes all the way through there, from there to classroom practices, actually putting things in practice, to what we would consider to be more cutting edge things like virtual reality, and we have professional development. In all these cases, one of the things that I really picked up on in IALLT programming from the first conference I attended in 2003 is how practical everything is. Whatever your interest is in, if it's designing a space, if it's in putting VR into applications, if it's to encouraging cultural communication among your students, there's going to be a practical application that's presented. It's not pie in the sky ivory tower presentations. And I think that is so meaningful to everyone in the field. People who really need to go and take the knowledge and put it into practice wherever you are. If you're going with a burning question, you'll probably find it answered here. I know for me, I've got upcoming projects in my language center that are involving green screen and cross-cultural communications and virtual reality, and I'm finding more than ample things on all of that. Career readiness is a hot topic this year. And I think this is really one of the first times we've seen career readiness filter up to the top of the themes at our conference. And that is because as language professionals, we are seeing more and more how language skills and global skills are factoring into a global economy and a global marketplace. And we're disseminating that information to our students, but also to the community and to our administrations about why languages are important. And this is something we've always said as language teachers, oh, if you have another language, it'll be easier to find a job. Well, now we've actually having data and information and practices behind this to drive it. And so we're seeing that come up as a very fascinating and energized topic this year in our conference. A growing theme, and that's how we're able to access more professional development, both virtually and across learning communities. And so that, again, to bring it all back, ties it into crafting communities of language learners and professionals. And I'm super excited about the topics that we have. I think that they become more and more relevant to the current state of the language profession, what we're seeing in terms of political and administrative trends, and it really reflects it. So there's something of value to classroom instructors, administrators. Everyone's going to get some more than a basketful of value out of the topics here. Stacey, did you have anything else you wanted to add about the program slate itself?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. There's a lot of really good, there's only 6 concurrent topics each time period, but I guarantee you will find at least one, if not more than one, during every time slot that you're interested in. So I think it's a really good program. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. And to have it in such a beautiful location, such an amazing place. And we are so excited to have our keynote speaker, Michelle Aoki. Please correct me if I've pronounced that wrong. She is extremely well known in the Pacific Northwest, and when her name was first mentioned, everybody was like, oh yes, that's who we want. She's engaging and energized. And so I'm real excited to be able to turn it over to Michelle to talk about herself and her keynote presentation.
Hi, Trish. It's Michelle. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm actually in Ohio at the moment, so I'm trying to do this off my in driving mode. Can you still hear me? Okay, I'm not going to try my video because sometimes that just has bandwidth issues. But yes, thank you. I have to say I'm extremely honored to have been invited to give the keynote. I've been hanging out with IALLT as Paula Oki's wife for a long time, including that Victoria conference. In fact, I took our young daughter up there for the planning year and then for the conference itself. I also was back at the IALLT that was in Boston, mostly to see some friends there. So I've never been at the conference except I was at a PNCFL conference that happened last spring, and so that was really fun to be able to hear some presentations there and so on. However, I do have a personal background in technology because like a lot of people who were linguists, when I finished my doctoral exams, there wasn't going to be a job, and so I became a computer programmer and systems analyst. So I worked in the business field for almost 20 years, but part of that time I still went back and taught Russian some and so on. And so when I eventually actually got to work on writing my dissertation, I did it on a computational approach to Russian morphology. And so I've always been really interested in technology, both from the point of view of giving insight into language, such as in the field of computational linguistics, which unfortunately, my dissertation was a little bit too early, was barely accepted by the department, but in any case, I got the PhD. But also in my more recent years, really the last 20 years, I've really been focused more on pedagogy and the teaching and learning of languages. So I'm very interested in where technology fits into assisting teachers to be more effective, to share things more effectively, and so on. And certainly to give access to students to connect with the world and to use their language to get feedback and so on. So one of the things that I've been particularly involved with for the last number of years was the introduction in Washington State, when I was the state supervisor for world languages, of our process in Washington for competency-based credit testing, which was made possible because of STAMP coming online. And we had started using STAMP, which was developed, of course, at Castles at the University of Oregon. And so I definitely will plan to bring in that aspect of the story, that the ability to have assessment at a reasonable cost in a variety of languages across skills, and something that could be done for not just teachers or professionals or military people, but for any language learner, basically, to have access to information about how they're doing, was critical to us in developing our K-12 approach to dual language immersion programs in Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish in Seattle. And then ultimately developing this competency-based credit testing, which has evolved much beyond just STAMP. And now we've served so many languages, and we partner with Avant Assessment, we partner with Castles as well to make assessments available to less commonly taught languages. So what that has done is open up the door to making something like the Seal of Biliteracy a possibility in an equitable way. So we have a lot of states that have introduced the Seal of Biliteracy, but it's limited to things like tests in AP language tests, or the Apple test or STAMP or something like that. And so a lot of languages are left behind. We didn't do it that way in our state because we had already started by meeting the needs of less commonly taught languages through collaboration with Castles and Avant Assessment, Eugene, in other words, the center of the universe, to make it possible for us to provide assessments for a whole variety of languages. So all of these things are, technology has helped make these things possible, and it is in that sense going to be a driver, I believe, to growing the market, the interest in students wanting to reach higher levels of proficiency, because now there's ways of having those things recognized. We put it out there, and in particular with the heritage communities, where those folks have often been left behind. They had whatever language they got from their homes, but there was never anything to tell them that other people cared whether they developed their languages further and could use them for, truly professional purposes and so on. So I'm going to kind of talk about that dance between, what technology made possible for us in the learning and teaching, what it made possible for us in assessment, how assessment has opened up new avenues of freeing ourselves from just relying on the normal class structures in a K-12 setting or in a higher education setting, but ways of recognizing what students have been able to learn wherever and whenever and however they learned it. And then how having access to that data about how students are learning languages can really inform teachers, at least teachers who are open to it, to transform their practices, because now they actually have an idea about what's going on and where they're trying to head. So I'll speak to it both as a state supervisor and kind of getting a lot of this stuff launched and working with my colleagues around the country, and how I feel that K-12, there's a number of us in K-12 that are really trying to take this work forward. We're feeling like there's a gap between what we've been trying to do and what's happening in higher ed. It seems like the stories from higher ed are just programs being cut, was it 625 or something? And so we got to work together, and we've got to shift because of the great increase in the number of dual language immersion programs and heritage learners who are actually keeping, maintaining, and building on their language skills, sometimes through Star Talk, for example. We need to have universities not think of themselves as just offering first and second year level language classes, and really how to meet the needs of students who will come to them with higher levels of language proficiency, but still needing things to be offered to them. They need to do more. They're not fully baked, and the universities, we haven't had a good handshake. And so technology, I think, can be part of how we do that, because it allows us to see in a broader way. It allows us to see data. It allows us to see what's really going on. It allows us to see actual student samples and so on. So that's the general direction I'm taking, I guess. So I don't know. Yeah, go ahead, please. Yeah, if anybody's got any comments.
That sounds amazing, Michelle. And that whole bridge across articulation is so important. It's a key to what I know that we work at Georgia State at the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, is that articulation from K through 12 up through. And it's still getting, it's still evolving. And
yes, very much so evolving.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so that issue of equity and access, particularly in seals of biliteracy, is a national discussion.
Yeah, and I think what we've really learned is that, you know, the language learning and teaching enterprise has generally been focused on traditional world language students, the students that arrived in college and started a first-year language class, or maybe they started in high school. Okay, maybe they even started in middle school, but it was all really about Americans who were second language learners of some generally more commonly taught language, not so much the less commonly taught languages. What has really evolved is both the direction of recognizing heritage learners as for who they are and what they need, and how what a huge asset they are to our country, but it's an asset that needs to be nurtured and encouraged. And then in the middle, we've got this whole direction and a huge expansion of dual language immersion. And what my experience as we've gotten our dual language immersion students into the middle and high school, they share a lot of characteristics with heritage language learners, and often many of them are heritage language learners, especially in dual language programs that are two-way, for example, or if you have the population is that way. And we have to prepare our teachers to be effective with those learners in a very, very different way. And so we're sort of in this place of we're trying to encourage people to buy the Kool-Aid, but we're not sure the Kool-Aid's properly sweetened. You know, it's like we want people to expand opportunities and offer more world languages, and more world language classes and higher levels and so on, but we don't want them to do it just like we used to do it 20 years ago, which unfortunately a lot of the teaching still is a lot like that. And so you're trying to, you know, change the plane even while we're trying to fly it and take it to further destinations. So anyway, that's kind of the idea.
All right, thank you.
For the mother of a helicopter pilot, that was a great metaphor to close on.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Michelle, and we're really looking forward to having you at the conference in June.
It's an incredible honor. Thank you. I can't tell you. It's since I'm retiring from my job actually in September, this is part of sort of the capstone for my career, you could say in some ways. At least my career is in the public sector. So
awesome. Well, we're glad to be a part of that. So
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, so I'm going to transition now and talk a little bit more about kind of a variety of things regarding the conference. First, I want to say that I'm not sure what Jeff's expectations are, but I will tell you, having worked on a lot of the conferences over the last 10 years, our registrations are actually pretty good right now. We've got about 90 people registered, and for 2 months out from the conference, I'm feeling good about those numbers. They keep trickling in every day, and for me, what's most exciting is the number of first-time attendees that we have. So I'm really kind of looking at this from the perspective as a lot of the normal IALLT folks that we typically expect at our conferences. a lot of them haven't registered yet. And I know that they're coming because they've told me they're coming, or they're on the program, they're presenters, and they just haven't registered yet. I would say we've probably got, I don't know, 60 or so first-time attendees who've already registered. And so I think that's incredible. What we also have is a large number of countries, different countries, represented this year in the registrations that we haven't seen before. We're used to having and welcoming our members from China and from Japan. What we've got this time is there's actually a handful of folks coming from Saudi Arabia, and I don't know if they're all in the same institution or if they're coming from different parts of the country. But we've got Saudi Arabia, we've got someone coming from the West Indies, we've got someone from Singapore, Germany, and I think that's not regular for us. We've got someone from Mexico, someone from Colombia, and there's a gentleman from Africa who's coming. I believe is it Kenya, Jeff? I can't remember exactly. I believe it's Kenya. And so these are folks that have registered for the conference, not just people that may be attending, or some of them are presenters even. So I'm really excited about that. I also want to talk some more about the conference experience. We put a lot of effort into trying to make sure that IALLT has wonderful sessions and opportunities from the academic perspective of the conference. We definitely want it to be worth your time because we know you're giving up your time and in many cases some of your own money to come. But we also try to create ample opportunities for networking, for really making sure that you understand, and especially this is important for our first-time attendees, that IALLT can become your professional network, your home, your family. And so with that in mind, we've scheduled all sorts of events for the conference. You're familiar with the opening reception. We've scheduled these workshops to have the craft workshop and the regular workshop, and we've tried to schedule them so that you can participate in the board and council meeting, but also have the opportunity to attend some of the workshops. And that's something that we did differently this time. And it does overlap with at least one of the workshop slots, but we made sure that there are, I believe there's a total of 1, 2, 3, there's 5 workshop slots in the conference. And so at least 4 of those slots don't conflict with the board and council meeting. So you can attend the board and council meeting and still have several options for workshops. We've got the craft workshops. We've scheduled a winery tour. So if you want to take advantage of some of the wonderful aspects of the tourism in Oregon, you can still attend some of the workshops, but still be able to participate in the winery tour. On Saturday, after the main conference sessions have ended, we've got additional workshops scheduled, but there's also an opportunity to go down to the Eugene Market, which is a Saturday handicrafts market. It takes place every Saturday through the warmer months. And I'm really excited about that because it's something that I enjoyed when I was there for my site visit, was able to go again in August when we were there for the summit. And I have to say, I'm wearing a pair of earrings that I bought there. These are my lampwork penguins, glass penguins. And just for fun, when we were there in August, we actually talked to the woman that has the booth at the Eugene Market that makes these the lampwork glass figures, and she's actually working on some IALLT earrings with our IALLT logo. I've seen the proof, the photos, so I'm hoping that at some point I'll be able to put those up on the website, and maybe we'll be able to showcase a local made in Eugene handcraft memento for folks to buy and take home. So it's little touches like that we're really trying to add to the conference to make your conference experience even more memorable. Obviously, we have the pub crawl. We're calling it the let's see, it's the Local Food and Beverage Cultural Tour. I have to make sure I get that name right. So as part of the Local Food and Beverage Cultural Tour, we're really going to be in the fermentation district. I mean, this is actually a section of Eugene that is full of food trucks and breweries and cider works and wineries, and so it's all in this one area of town, and we're going to drive you there and drop you off and then come back and pick you up. So actually, I say that as if I'm not going. Hell, heck, I'm going to be there too. So that just lots of fun opportunities. And so if you haven't registered for those fun opportunities, go back and do that. Take advantage of them. The registration site is set up so that you can separate your conference registration from the special events, just because I know a lot of institutions won't pay for those special events, but they will pay for your conference registration. So that's why we've got it separated out. So go back to the registration site and you'll see one of the options is labeled workshop and event tickets a la carte. And so that's there for you. That's so that you can do all of these fun things without worrying about the accountants at your university pitching a fit. Something else that I want to point out, on our conference website, there's a section called Lodging, Travel, and Local Information. And if you scroll to the bottom of that page, there is a section called Local Area Information. And I have to admit that a lot of times I don't bother to look at that on websites for conferences that I go to, because I figure I won't have time to do it. It's worth checking out. There's a lot of really good information there. The local Travel Lane County is the local tourism information bureau, and they've worked with us on this. And so they actually put this little microsite together for us, specifically for IALLT, to help share some information about things that'll be going on in the area, how to get around, transportation. There's also a fun thing. They have Pinot Bingo, where you can actually get, a card, or it's a little flyer, little pamphlet that if you visit several of the wineries, you can check those off, and then there's prizes involved. And if you do the winery tour Tuesday afternoon, we're going to go to, I think, 2 of the wineries, and then there's others in town that you could visit the night of the food and beverage cultural tour. So I think there's different ones. It's the Eugene tasting trails is what they're called. So there's one for beer, one for wine, and I want to say there's also a cider tasting trail as well. But you have to go to the website and look at all of that information. We've also made arrangements. We aren't actually hosting the tour, but if you come out early on Tuesday, there's a full day excursion that we've put a link on our website, so that if you want to take that opportunity, it's an excursion that will pick you up and take you to the coast and let you spend the day. You'll drive through some beautiful scenery. I have to say that in August, when I was out there for the summit, my husband and I actually rented a car and we drove down the Oregon coast, and it was beautiful. And I'm from the South. I'm from Alabama, Gulf Shores. I love my southern beaches, but I was blown away by how beautiful the Oregon coast was. So if you can plan to spend some extra time when you come for the conference, this is a conference to do that for. Come out early if you can, do the coast tour, or rent a car. Fly into Portland, it's a little cheaper. Rent a car and drive down the coast. Other opportunities, I think this year we're going to try to go inland, and we're going to try to go to Crater Lake that Jeff mentioned, and see Mount Hood. And so just take advantage of all of the opportunities that you possibly can, and really make this make it a trip. Bring your family. We have things. Oh, that's the other thing. The craft workshops, it's only 18 and older, but if you drag your spouse with you to the conference, your spouse can actually register for the craft workshops. That's through the University of Oregon, and so they are welcome to participate in those.
Can you highlight the craft workshops, Stacey?
Let me do that. Let me go back. I'm going to share my screen for a minute. Share. Let's see what it does. Okay, so on our workshops page on the conference site, There are 3 crafting workshops. So we've got crafting block printed cards, the fused glass dish, and stamped keychains and dog tags. And I don't know, is that too small to see? Do I need to make that bigger? Let's see if I can. Don't know if it will, yeah, okay. So block printed cards, and these, there are restrictions on these. Maximum of 12 participants for the block printed cards, maximum of 8 for the fused glass dish. So far, that one's the most popular of the craft workshops. Now, we've got other workshops or have more participants, more registrants. But the stamped keychains and dog tags, that one has a maximum of 10. So all of these, we have to have a minimum of 4 people registered, just because the Oregon Craft Center is having to bring in the instructors, and this is their spring break. So we want to make sure that we respect their time. But there's a link to the Craft Center, and this is what floored me, is the fact that this exists in the Student Center at the University of Oregon. I would love if Auburn had something like this. This is just incredible. I would be doing stuff there every semester if it were on my campus.
I was just about to say, this is such a unique opportunity to be able to do this in cooperation with our actual professional conference. It's you know, you talk about live-work balance or life-work balance or something like that. This is like creative technological balance or something like that.
Well, and the cultural aspect of it too. I mean, Trish and I were talking about, okay, so the fused glass, you know, the whole Italian tradition of the Venetian glass, and
I've always loved Japanese block printing, and so to be able to go and carve a block and print gives me a hands-on appreciation for this rich tradition of Japanese block printing. So we're just excited in general about the conference. I guess I should stop babbling and let you all ask questions if you've got any. So I'll stop sharing.
I see that Marlene's on. I don't know if she wants to share how she's getting from the Portland airport to Eugene, but she's got the best story I've heard so far.
Why is that a good story? It was you guys' suggestion.
But you're the only one who took us up on it.
We're flying into Portland and we're taking the train down to Eugene. As I'm a big train fan, and supposedly you can see the coast as you go, right?
No.
Well, I think it depends on which train. I think there is a train on the coast, but I don't know which one you're taking.
Well, we are renting a car and we're going to go see the sea lions and the raptor center and the lighthouse. So we're going to do all of that too. But yes, the train, I'm a big train fan. So that sounded like a good option.
Good for you, Marlene. And if you do fly into the Portland airport, there's rapid transit downtown. Max is so if you're coming a day early or something like that, that's how Marlene can get to the train station. It's about a 45-minute ride from the airport. Yeah,
that's the key piece of information, is that the train station is not at the airport. You have to get from the airport to the train station. But then, yeah, I think the train is a wonderful idea. I'll mention the hotel. I don't want to forget that. We have a block at the hotel that is very quickly filling because it is not a huge hotel. It is walking distance from the conference. So that's the big plus for this hotel. But if you haven't made your hotel reservation yet, do it, because that block, I expect that block to fill up. I really do. And there are other hotels. They're not going to match our price, so they're going to be a little bit more expensive. And they're not going to be walking distance. This hotel is it. It is the closest hotel that you're going to find to the conference venues. And we're pretty much
have homemade chocolate chip cookies at night.
But we will, most of the conference is going to be in the same, well, it's in the same two buildings. Everything, all the workshops are going to be in the building that's actually even closest to the hotel. All of the technology workshops, the craft workshops will be in the Student Center, but then everything else all day Thursday and Friday is going to be in that main conference center. And it is, you saw the pictures that Jeff showed, it's hard to take those pictures and translate them into the actual building in real life. And it's a phenomenal space. It's going to be, those of you who were at Concordia, the conference space, the venue that we had in Concordia was wonderful. I loved that space. The problem is we couldn't get people to come to Minnesota. No offense, Marlene and Gus. But you know, we've already got more people registered for this conference than attended the Concordia conference, which makes me sad because it was such a great conference and I really enjoyed it. But I think this venue and this location, Eugene, is really an attractive option for folks. And so I do think that we're going to have really good attendance in spite of what Jeff thinks.
Gus just mentioned that he's looking for a roommate. Do you have any suggestions for that? Maybe through LLTI to look for roommates? Is that what you would say?
LLTI, the Facebook group. Yeah, we hadn't really figured out a way to formally do that. I mean, I'm willing to try and facilitate to some degree if you want, but I would definitely start with the Facebook group and LLTI. Roommate finder. I'm not familiar with that. Is that, I can check into that. I'll check out Calico's website and see how they've got it.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it said, but there was some little system or Google Doc they put in place for that very thing.
Well, I think we tried to do it for the Fleet Conference in Boston, and the truth is we didn't have a whole lot of people take us up on it.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we just did a Google Doc.
Yeah, it wasn't an endorsement. I just remember seeing it, so something to think about.
Yeah, I didn't know if Roommate Finder was like an app or some third-party thing, or if it was just something they set up.
I don't know. No.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I'll look into that. So any questions? Anybody else as excited as Trish and I are?
Good for you, Shannon.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Shannon, I have to give her a shout out. When we were putting the schedule together, Shannon is participating in or presenting 6 different sessions during the conference. And I think she gets an award for that. So
I just wanted to work with everyone who asked, and everyone that I asked said yes too. So thanks for putting up with my scheduling problems. Apparently no limit, Marlene. It could be up to 100.
Well, I think the panels are just one of the great parts of the conference as well. You know, we proportionately have, I mean, probably a third or more, right, Trish?
There's a lot. Trish said her connection dropped, so she has disappeared. But yeah, there's a lot of panels, lots and lots of panels. So.
Well, that's one of the best things about IALLT is the collaborative spirit, and so I think that just comes through in that.
Yeah.
Well, we're really looking forward to seeing everybody.
Ooh, want suggestions for only one day? Ooh, I really don't know. I have posted the PDFs for the sessions, so those are on the website. The first day, Thursday, is when we're going to have our keynote, so that's when Michelle will speak. On Friday morning, in addition to the sessions, we'll have our Henderson plenary speaker, and that's, I mean, if you look at the PDF, it spills the beans. So I think that's going to be a really interesting talk. And then Saturday is only a half day of sessions, but we've got sessions in the morning, and that's going to be followed by kind of a IALLT town hall meeting, a closing session. And then there's also workshops that afternoon. So I would say look at the workshop schedule and see if the Saturday workshops are interesting to you. And if they are, then you might want to consider the Saturday plus workshops add-ons. Otherwise, look at the sessions that are offered on Thursday and Friday. I've tried to spread. We don't really have tracks, but I did take large topics and spread them out over the entire conference. And so there are sessions about virtual reality and augmented reality on each of the days. There are sessions about teaching online on each of the days. There are sessions about professional development that are spread out throughout the conference. You know, language center management, those are spread out throughout the conference. So yeah, so there's lots of opportunities. So I would say look at the schedule and see which day looks like it's got more of the things that you're interested in. And if that's not possible, try to find some funding and stay for an extra day.
I happen to know that Zach's one of our international attendees. He's coming from Kazakhstan.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, shoot, if you're going to come that far.
3 days.
Stay more than one day. So, no, we appreciate the fact that you're willing to make the trip. But I think there are a lot of good reasons to try to come and stay as long as you can, I think. So.
Well, and you just
I'm in Kazakhstan. So my family actually lives in Ashland. So I'm actually returning from Kazakhstan at that time. So I'm getting back middle of May, and then I'll be road tripping with my girlfriend around that time. So I'm trying to figure out how many days, and she's gotten into teaching as well. So we're deciding. I was a master's student at the University of Oregon. Jeff was one of my professors.
So I don't have to sell you on the place.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to make it happen. And I worked at castles as well. So yeah, but it's just a matter of which day and deciding, because everything does look so great. Maybe a couple of days, I'm not sure yet. But yeah, thank you for the tips.
Yeah, no, it's a good conference, and so if this is a field that you're looking to stay in, then this is a good group of people to network with. So the longer you can stay, the more relationships you'll be able to form with folks. So, and they tend to last, because Jeff talked about his first conference experience at the Fleet in Victoria. I know that happened a year after he became the director. Trish and I met at the Michigan conference in 2003, right around the time that both of us became the directors of our respective language centers, language resource centers, labs, and we're all still here. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, no, it's definitely dedicated to the profession, and always networking is always an amazing idea. So totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Henderson plenary that Jeff just wrote something about, we may get a little bit of a preview of that at our next webinar. And I just want to let everyone know what our next webinar is. It's May 14th at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 Central, etc. And Dan Nicolai and Jonathan Giels are going to be presenting, and their topic is automatic speech recognition in world languages, and I'm going to put the registration link in the chat so you can register right away.
And I will say that the program committee had no idea when they selected the Henderson plenary.
Well, this wasn't a last minute thing because we had somebody cancel. So Dan and John very kindly stepped in to do a webinar sort of at the last minute. So thanks, Dan, for that. And
yeah, but Jonathan just found out yesterday that he was our winner.
Okay.
So no spoilers, guys. Don't blow it for the conference.
Earrings for all.
Well, thanks everyone for telling us about the conference. I'm really looking forward to it, and I know a lot of people are. There are people who are asking me about whether this would be recorded and shared, so we're planning on recording this, or we already recorded it, and we'll share this with other people who weren't able to come at this time. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Trish. Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing all of you.
Yes, it's going to be a great time.
Mm-hmm.